The crimson suns of Xerion Prime cast long shadows across the crystalline spires of the Dragon Court, where Prince Caltherin stood motionless on his obsidian balcony. His scaled hands gripped the railing with enough force to crack the ancient stone, golden eyes fixed on the swirling nebula that had once been his homeworld. 3 cycles had passed since the humans had arrived in their sector, and everything had changed. The Draconic Empire had ruled 17 star systems for over 10,000 years. They were apex predators among the stars, their massive ships shaped like the great WRMS of old, breathing plasma fire that could vaporize entire fleets. No species had ever challenged their dominance successfully, until humanity appeared from the galactic rim with their strange, boxy vessels and their incomprehensible tactics. Caltherin's sister, Princess Lyra Ven, had been the first to make contact with the humans. She had been the diplomat, the bridge builder, while he had been the warrior. Where he saw potential threats, she saw opportunities for understanding. Her death in the first human-dragon skirmish at the Helios Gate had shattered something fundamental in the prince's worldview. The soft whisper of approaching footsteps made his head turn sharply. In the doorway stood a figure that should not exist. A human female, slight by dragon standards, with auburn hair that seemed to catch fire in the twin sunset. What made Caltherin's breath catch wasn't her appearance, but her eyes. They were the exact shade of molten gold that had belonged to his sister. "Your Highness," the human said, her voice carrying the formal tones of the court, though she spoke in perfect Draconic. "I am Commander Sarah Chun of the Terran Diplomatic Corps. I've been assigned as your new military liaison." Caltherin's claws extended involuntarily. No human should speak their language so flawlessly, and certainly none should be allowed into his private chambers. His guards were either dead or had betrayed him. Neither possibility boded well. "How did you get past my security?" he growled, his voice carrying the subsonic rumble that could shatter glass. The human, Chen, didn't flinch. Instead, she stepped closer, moving with a fluid grace that reminded him painfully of Lyra Ven's dancer-like movements. "I told them I was expected. Sometimes the simplest approaches work best." "You lie." Caltherin turned fully to face her, his 7-foot frame casting her in shadow. "No human is expected in my presence. Your kind killed my sister." For the first time, something shifted in Chen's expression. The diplomatic mask slipped for just an instant, revealing something deeper: pain, recognition, and something else he couldn't identify. "I know," she said quietly. "I was there when she died." The admission hit him like a plasma burst to the chest. Caltherin's hand moved to the ceremonial blade at his side, its crystalline edge humming with contained energy. "Then you'll join her. She saved my life," Chun continued, not moving despite the obvious threat. "Princess Lyra Ven threw herself between my ship and the crossfire from both our fleets. Her last words were about you." Caltherin froze. No one else had been close enough to hear Lyra Ven's final moments. The official reports from both sides had been frustratingly vague. His sister's ship had been caught between the human and dragon battle lines during a communication attempt gone wrong. Both sides blamed the other for her death. What did she say? The words came out as barely more than a whisper. Chen's golden eyes met his directly, a gesture of either incredible bravery or stunning stupidity among dragons. She said, "Tell Kale the stars remember everything. The dance continues in new forms." The ceremonial blade clattered to the floor as Caltherin staggered backward. Those were words from their childhood, a private code they had developed during their lessons in astronavigation. Lyra Ven had been obsessed with the idea that stellar formations held memories, that the universe itself was conscious and aware. She had called their orbital mechanics lessons dancing with the stars. "Impossible," he breathed. She told no one those words. They were ours alone. Chin stepped forward, her movements still unnaturally graceful. "She told me many things in those final moments. About the garden behind the summer palace where you used to practice sword forms together. About the time you both got lost in the crystal caves and had to follow the singing stones to find your way out. About how you always blamed yourself for not protecting her, even when you were children." Each revelation was like a physical blow. These weren't things that could be gleaned from intelligence reports or diplomatic briefings. They were intimate moments, shared memories that existed only between siblings who had been closer than most twins. Why? Cale Theron's voice cracked with the weight of grief he had carried for 3 cycles. Why are you telling me this? Chun moved closer still, now standing within arm's reach of a dragon prince who could tear her apart without effort. Because she asked me to, because she knew what her death would do to you, and she knew what you would become. What I would become, he echoed. The destroyer of worlds, Chun said simply. That's what the intelligence reports call you now. 7 human colonies burned to ash. 12 diplomatic envoys executed. The dragon prince who trusts no one and shows no mercy. Cale Theron wanted to deny it, but the accusations were accurate. Since Lyraven's death, he had become exactly what the humans feared. A merciless predator who saw every extended hand as a potential weapon. His sister had been the diplomat. Without her, he was simply a weapon pointed at the galaxy. Your sister knew you would need someone you could trust absolutely, Chin continued. Someone who could carry her words, her memories, her hopes for peace between our peoples. And you expect me to believe that person is you? A human. The word came out like a curse. Chin smiled, and for a moment, Cale Theron could have sworn he saw Lyraven's mischievous grin. Not just any human. Your sister didn't just save my life that day, Your Highness. Something else happened in those final moments, something that neither of our scientists can fully explain. She reached into her uniform and withdrew a small crystalline pendant, a traditional dragon soul stone, used in the most sacred of ceremonies. Cale Theron recognized it immediately. It had belonged to Lyraven since her coming-of-age ritual. She pressed this into my hands as she died, Chin explained. Said it would help you understand. Said the stars remember everything, including how to begin again. The soul stone pulsed with a soft golden light, and Cale Theron felt something impossible. A familiar presence, warm and comforting and utterly impossible. Soul stones were supposed to be inert, without dragon life force to power them. Yet this one sang with energy, and the song was hauntingly familiar. This proves nothing, he said, though his conviction was wavering. Humans are known for their deceptions. Then, test me, Chun challenged. Ask me something only Lyraven would know. Ask me about the nightmares. Cale Theron's breath caught again. The nightmares had been his secret shame, visions that had plagued him since childhood, dreams of burning worlds and endless war, of a future where dragons and humans destroyed each other completely. Only Lyraven had known about them, had sat with him through the worst nights, and helped him find meaning in the chaos. What did she tell you about them? He asked carefully. Chin closed her eyes for a moment, as if accessing a distant memory. She said you dreamed of a great war that consumed both our species. Ships falling like burning rain, worlds cracked and lifeless. And in the center of it all, a dragon prince who had forgotten how to trust, how to hope, how to see beyond his own pain. The description was perfect, down to details he had never shared with anyone. Cale Theron found himself studying Chin more closely, noting things his initial anger had made him miss. The way she held her head at the same slight angle Lyraven had favored. The unconscious habit of touching her left wrist when nervous, exactly as his sister had done. The way her eyes seemed to hold depths of knowledge that no human should possess. What are you? He whispered. I don't know, Chin admitted. The human scientists call it quantum consciousness transfer. The dragon's mystics speak of soul migration. All I know is that when your sister died, something of her didn't die with her. Something that found its way into me. She moved to the balcony railing, gazing out at the same nebula that held Cale Theron's attention. I have my own memories, my own life, my own personality. But I also have hers. I remember growing up in the crystal spires. I remember learning the sword forms and the star dances. I remember loving a brother who always tried to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders. Cale Theron joined her at the railing, maintaining careful distance. Even if what you say is true, even if some fragment of my sister lives within you, you are still human. Your people and mine are at war. Because of misunderstanding, Chun said firmly. because both sides see only what they fear in the other. Humans see dragons as cruel tyrants who have oppressed the galaxy for millennia. Dragons see humans as chaotic upstarts who threaten the natural order. Both perspectives have truth, and both are incomplete. And you believe you can change that? Chen turned to face him fully, and in the dying light of the twin suns, her golden eyes seemed to glow with their own inner fire. I believe we can change it. Together. Your sister's last wish was for her death to mean something beyond just another casualty of war. She wanted it to be the beginning of understanding. The Dragon Court would never accept a human as a legitimate voice for peace, Keltherin pointed out. And your own people would see any dragon cooperation as weakness or betrayal. Then, we don't start with the courts or the governments, Chen replied. We start with the truth. We start with what really happened at Helios Gate, and we make sure both sides understand that they've been fighting a war neither of them actually wanted. Keltherin considered her words, feeling the weight of the soul stone's gentle pulsing. There was something compelling about this human, something beyond the impossible similarities to his sister. She spoke with a conviction that reminded him of Lyra Vin's own passionate beliefs about peace and understanding. What do you propose? He asked finally. A joint investigation, Chun said immediately, independent of both military commands. We go to Helios Gate, we examine the wreckage, and we piece together exactly what went wrong. Your sister believed the battle was triggered by a third party, someone who wanted our peoples to destroy each other. That's a serious accusation. It's a serious possibility. Think about it, Your Highness. Dragons and humans had coexisted in the same galaxy for decades without major conflict. Suddenly, a routine diplomatic meeting turns into a massacre that kills the one person both sides respected. That's either an incredible coincidence or a deliberate act. Keltherin had wondered about that himself during many sleepless nights. The attack had come out of nowhere, triggered by what appeared to be an unprovoked human assault on his sister's diplomatic vessel. But the humans claimed their ships had been fired upon first. Both sides had evidence supporting their version of events. Even if we discovered proof of third-party involvement, who would believe us? I am known as the Destroyer of Worlds. You are a human in a galaxy where humans are increasingly seen as the enemy. Chun smiled again, that familiar expression that tugged at something deep in his chest. Then, we'll have to prove we're more than what we appear to be. Your sister always said that trust wasn't given. It was earned, one choice at a time. A soft chime echoed across the balcony, indicating an incoming priority message. Keltherin accessed it through his neural interface, his expression darkening as he read the contents. The Dragon High Command is mobilizing the Third Fleet, he reported grimly. 50 of our most powerful warships, moving toward the human colony at New Terra. They're calling it a retaliation strike. Chen's face paled. New Terra has 12 million civilians. It's barely defended. And if it falls, the human response will be equally devastating, Keltherin realized. This will escalate beyond any hope of peace. They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of impending catastrophe settling between them. Then, Chun straightened, her expression becoming determined. How long before the fleet reaches New Terra? 6 days, perhaps 7 if they encounter navigation hazards. Then, we have 6 days to stop a war, Chen said firmly. 6 days to prove that Lyravin's sacrifice meant something. Keltherin looked at her, this impossible human who carried his sister's memories, and spoke with her voice about hope in the face of despair. Every rational part of his mind screamed that this was madness, that trusting a human would only lead to betrayal and death. But the Soul Stone pulsed warmly against his consciousness, and for just a moment, he could almost hear Lyravin's voice whispering that some leaps of faith were worth taking. 6 days, he agreed, making perhaps the most important decision of his life. Then we begin, as the twin suns finally set over Zirian Prime, casting the crystal spires in silver starlight. Prince Keltherin and Commander Sarachin stood side by side, 2 warriors from opposite sides of an impossible war, united by the memory of someone who had believed in a better future. Neither of them knew if they could prevent the coming catastrophe. Neither of them knew if the trust they were tentatively building could survive the weight of their people's hatred. But they knew they had to try. In the distance, the great dragon warships were already beginning to stir, their crystalline hulls gleaming as they prepared for departure. Time was running out for hope, running out for peace, running out for any future that didn't end in the ashes of burned worlds. But sometimes, Kael Theron reflected as he watched Shin study the star charts with Lyraven's familiar intensity. The impossible was just another word for something that hadn't happened yet. The first day of their unlikely alliance was ending. 5 remained to save 2 civilizations from destroying each other. The stars, as Lyraven had always insisted, would remember everything, including whether they had chosen to dance together or burn alone. The stolen merchant vessel Shadow's Edge drifted silently through the asteroid field that marked the boundary of the Helios system, its hull scarred by micrometeor impacts and battle damage that predated its current occupants. Commander Sarah Chun ran her fingers over the crude modifications they had made to the ship's systems, turning a simple cargo hauler into something capable of deep space reconnaissance without triggering military sensors. "The irony is not lost on me," Prince Kael Theron commented from the pilot's position, his massive frame somehow fitting into the human-sized chair through careful folding of his wings. 3 days ago, I would have considered stealing a ship to be beneath my station. 3 days ago, you were planning to reduce human colonies to radioactive ash, Chen replied without looking up from her work on the sensor array. I call this progress. They had spent 2 days preparing for this mission, working in secret within the crystal caves beneath Kael Theron's palace. The prince had used his authority to access restricted files on the Helios Gate incident, while Chun had leveraged her diplomatic credentials to requisition equipment and supplies. Neither of their respective commands knew what they were planning. Contact on long-range sensors, Chen announced, studying the holographic display that materialized above the console. Dragon Patrol, 3 ships, maintaining standard formation. They're sweeping the outer rim of the system. Kael Theron's golden eyes studied the tactical display with predatory focus. Commander Vexstar's squadron. He's competent but predictable. We can avoid him by staying within the asteroid shadow. As they navigated deeper into the system, Chen found herself watching the way Kael Theron handled the ship's controls. His movements were precise and economical, despite the obvious mismatch between his size and the human-designed interface. It reminded her of something Lyraven had once said about her brother, that he never used more force than necessary, whether in combat or in conversation. The memory came unbidden, and Chun had to pause in her work as it washed over her. It wasn't her memory, but it felt as real as her own childhood recollections. She could see Lyraven as clearly as if she were sitting in the cramped cabin with them, golden eyes bright with laughter as she told stories about her brother's precise nature. "You're experiencing another memory," Kael Theron observed without turning from the controls. His voice held no accusation, only a note of curiosity touched by pain. "She was telling someone about your first flying lesson," Chen said softly. "How you spent 3 hours adjusting the seat and controls before you would even start the engine. How the instructor thought you were afraid, but she knew you were just being thorough." "Master Thiel ran," Kael Theron murmured. He never understood that precision and caution were not the same as fear. A pause, then, "What else do you see?" Chen closed her eyes, letting the memory flow more freely. "She was proud of you. Even when you frustrated her with your caution, she was proud of how you never took unnecessary risks with other people's lives. And yet here I am, taking perhaps the greatest risk of my life with someone I barely know." "Do you barely know me?" Chen asked, opening her eyes to meet his gaze. "Or do you know me better than you want to admit?" Before Kael Theron could answer, the ship's proximity alarms began chiming. Both of them turned their attention to the sensor display, where a new contact had appeared, much closer than it should have been possible for any ship to approach undetected. "Human vessel," Kael Theron identified, his tone becoming professional and cold. "Modified destroyer, running silent until now. They were waiting for us." The communication system crackled to life, filled with the harsh static of short-range transmission. "Unknown vessel. This is Captain Morrison of the U.S. Retribution. Cut your engines and prepare to be boarded." Chen's blood ran cold. Morrison was a hardliner, one of the human commanders who had been advocating for preemptive strikes against Dragon installations. If he was here, it meant someone in the human command structure knew about their mission. "They can't know who we are," Chen said quickly, moving to the communication controls. "Our ship's transponder is showing merchant registration. Standard procedure would be Dragon life signs detected aboard target vessel," came Morrison's voice again, cutting her off. "All personnel are to consider this a hostile contact. Weapons are cleared hot." The Shadow's edge shuddered as the destroyer's targeting systems locked onto them, powerful scanners probing their ship's hull and interior. Chen realized with growing horror that they had been expected, possibly even led into a trap. "Someone knew we were coming," she said aloud, then looked at Cale Theron with sudden suspicion. "Did you tell anyone about our mission?" "I could ask you the same question," he replied, his hands already moving over the ship's defensive systems. "But recriminations will have to wait. That destroyer has enough firepower to vaporize us before we can even reach the edge of the asteroid field." The ship lurched as Morrison's vessel fired a warning shot across their bow, the energy blast close enough to overload their shields. Chun found herself thrown against the bulkhead, the impact driving the breath from her lungs. "This is your final warning," Morrison's transmission continued. "Surrender the Dragon terrorist or be destroyed." "Terrorist." Cale Theron's voice carried the subsonic growl that indicated rising anger. "I'm a prince of the Dragon Empire, not some common." To him, "You're the destroyer of worlds," Chen interrupted, struggling back to her feet. "He probably has orders to kill you on sight." Another blast rocked their ship, this one close enough to cause actual damage. Sparks flew from overloaded circuits, and the lights flickered ominously. Chen could see on the tactical display that Morrison's ship was moving to a more advantageous position, cutting off their escape routes. "I can fight our way out," Cale Theron said, his claws extending as he prepared to take manual control of the ship's weapons. "This vessel may be small, but I am not without skills, and prove to both our peoples that cooperation leads to violence." Chen shook her head. "There has to be another way." She studied the tactical display more carefully, noting the positioning of both the destroyer and the asteroid field around them. The wreckage of Helios Gate was less than an hour away at full speed, but they would never reach it with Morrison in pursuit. "The asteroids," she said suddenly, "some of these readings are strange. Look at grid reference 77 Alpha." Cale Theron followed her gaze to the sensor data, his expression shifting from anger to puzzlement. "Those energy readings are inconsistent with standard asteroid composition. Almost as if something is hidden there," Chun finished. "Something that's been waiting for 3 years to be found." The ship shook again under another near miss from the destroyer. Morrison's voice crackled through the comm system, no longer bothering with warnings. "Target is maneuvering to escape. All weapons, fire for effect." Chen made a decision that would have seemed impossible a week ago. She grabbed Cale Theron's arm, feeling the warm scales beneath his ceremonial clothing. "Do you trust me?" His golden eyes met hers for a long moment, and she could see the war between instinct and something deeper. Finally, he nodded. "Tell me what you need." "Plot a course directly toward that asteroid cluster. Maximum speed. That will take us directly into Morrison's firing solution. He'll destroy us before we reach cover. Not if we give him something more important to worry about." Chen's fingers flew over the communication controls, opening a channel on the emergency frequency that both Dragon and human ships monitored. "All vessels in the Helios system. This is Commander Sarah Chun of the Terran Diplomatic Corps. I am aboard a civilian vessel under attack by U.S. Retribution. Captain Morrison is firing on a ship carrying a diplomatic envoy without provocation." "Chen, what are you doing?" Morrison's voice cut across the channel, no longer confident. "You're listed as missing, possibly captured. If you're under duress." "I am not under duress, Captain. I am conducting an authorized investigation into the Helios Gate incident, accompanied by Prince Cale Theron of the Dragon Empire as a joint observer. Your attack on this vessel constitutes a violation of diplomatic immunity and an act of war." The lie was perfectly crafted, containing just enough truth to be believable. Chun had indeed been assigned to investigate the Helios incident, though not in cooperation with any dragon. And Caltherin was indeed observing, though not in any official capacity. Joint observer? Morrison's confusion was evident in his voice. Command never authorized any joint investigation. Command authorization is above your clearance level. Captain, Chin replied with the kind of bureaucratic authority that military officers dreaded. Stand down immediately or face court-martial for attacking a diplomatic vessel. The firing stopped, though Chin could see on the sensors that Morrison's ship was still tracking them. More importantly, the pause gave Caltherin time to reach the asteroid cluster she had identified. I'm still reading Dragon Life signs, Morrison said, his voice now uncertain. If Prince Caltherin is aboard as an observer, why is he not responding to this channel? Chin looked at Caltherin, who gave her a slight nod before activating his own communication link. When he spoke, his voice carried the formal tones of diplomatic protocol, though she could hear the underlying tension. Captain Morrison, I am Prince Caltherin, representing the Dragon Empire's interests in this investigation. Your interference with this mission has been noted and will be reported to your superiors. The effect was immediate. Morrison's ship stopped its approach, though its weapons remained trained on them. Chin could almost hear the captain's thoughts. Attacking a human commander was one thing, but firing on a dragon prince during a diplomatic mission could trigger a galactic war. I'll need confirmation from command before I can allow you to proceed, Morrison said finally. By all means, contact your superiors, Caltherin replied smoothly. However, be aware that any delay in this investigation will be considered interference with Imperial business. The Dragon High Command takes a dim view of such obstacles. It was a masterful bit of diplomatic theater, Chin realized. Both of them were technically lying, but neither was saying anything that could be definitively proven false. Morrison was trapped between his orders to stop any dragon incursion and the diplomatic consequences of attacking an officially sanctioned mission. During the standoff, Caltherin had maneuvered their ship into the asteroid cluster. Chen watched the sensor readings with growing excitement as they approached the energy source she had identified. What she saw defied easy explanation. Kale, look at this, she said, forgetting diplomatic protocol in her excitement. That's not an asteroid. The object hiding among the space debris was clearly artificial, a sleek, wedge-shaped vessel of unfamiliar design. Its hull was dark, almost black, and it showed no signs of battle damage despite being in the middle of what had been a major battlefield. More disturbing was the fact that it was still powered, energy readings indicating active systems despite having been here for 3 years. I've never seen a ship designed like that, Caltherin said, studying the tactical display. It's neither human nor dragon in origin. Third party, Chun breathed, remembering their conversation about Lyraven's suspicions. Someone else was at Helios Gate, someone who's been hiding here ever since. Before either of them could react, the mysterious ship's systems suddenly came fully online. Powerful sensors swept across their vessel, and Chun felt a chill as she realized they were being scanned by technology far more advanced than anything either humans or dragons possessed. Unknown vessel. Came a new voice over the communication system, speaking in perfect standard galactic, but with an accent that belonged to neither of their species. You have discovered that which was meant to remain hidden. This presents us with an interesting dilemma. Morrison's voice cut across the channel, sharp with alarm. Unknown contact. Identify yourself immediately. This is a restricted system under joint human-dragon investigation. Ah, Captain Morrison, the mysterious voice replied with what sounded like amusement. Still believing the lies your governments tell you, I see. How refreshingly naive. The black ship began to move, gliding through the asteroid field with impossible grace. As it emerged from the debris shadow, Chun could see it more clearly, and what she saw made her blood run cold. The vessel was massive, easily the size of a dragon dreadnought, but its technology was clearly centuries ahead of anything in known space. Kale, she said quietly, I think we've just discovered why our peoples went to war. The Dragon Prince's golden eyes were fixed on the alien vessel, his expression grim. And I believe we're about to discover whether we'll live long enough to tell anyone about it. On the communication channel, Morrison was demanding answers that no one seemed able to give. The mysterious ship continued its approach, and Chen realized with growing dread that their small vessel was now caught between a human destroyer that wanted to arrest them and an alien ship that might represent a threat to the entire galaxy. In the distance, the wreckage of Helios Gate drifted in silent testament to the day everything had gone wrong. And for the first time since beginning this mission, Chen wondered if they were about to discover some truths that would have been better left buried among the stars. The soul stone at her throat pulsed with warmth, and she could almost hear Lyra Vin's voice whispering that some knowledge, no matter how dangerous, was necessary for survival. Whether that would prove true remained to be seen. The alien ship was still approaching, and their options were running out fast. The alien vessel moved with predatory grace through the asteroid field, its dark hull seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it. Commander Sarah Chun watched the tactical display with growing dread as the ship's massive bulk dwarfed both their stolen merchant vessel and Morrison's destroyer. Whatever technology powered that thing, it was beyond anything humans or dragons had ever developed. "Captain Morrison," Prince Caltherin said into the communication channel, his voice carrying unexpected authority. "I suggest you withdraw immediately. This situation has evolved beyond your mission parameters." "I'm not taking orders from a dragon terrorist," Morrison replied, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. Chen could see on the sensors that his ship was already beginning to maneuver away from the alien contact. Then, take advice from a fellow warrior, Caltherin continued. "That vessel represents a threat to both our species. Your ship is powerful, but it was designed to fight enemies who follow the same basic technological principles you do." The alien ship's voice crackled across the comm system again, carrying that same tone of detached amusement. "How touching. Former enemies united in the face of superior technology. Though I suspect your cooperation will prove short-lived." Chun activated her own communication link, addressing the alien directly. "Who are you? What do you want?" Direct questions. "I appreciate efficiency." The voice paused, and Chen could hear what sounded like multiple conversations happening in the background, though in languages she couldn't identify. "I'm what you might call a curator. My people have been observing this galaxy for several millennia, cataloging the rise and fall of various species. Observing and interfering, apparently," Caltherin growled. "Interfering?" The alien sounded genuinely surprised. "We merely provide opportunities. Your species choose how to respond to them." The implications of that statement hit Chun like a physical blow. "You started the war. The incident at Helios Gate, you caused it." "Caused is such a limited word," the curator replied. "We created circumstances. Your people's responses were entirely their own choice. Fascinating responses, I might add. The humans chose to blame dragon aggression, while the dragons blamed human treachery. Both sides saw exactly what they expected to see." Morrison's voice cut across the channel, filled with barely controlled rage. "You're saying you murdered Princess Lyra Vin as some kind of experiment?" "The princess was an unintended casualty," the curator admitted with what might have been regret. "She attempted to broker peace at a most inconvenient moment. Our projections indicated a 73% probability that the war would burn itself out within 2 decades, leaving both species significantly weakened. Her diplomatic success would have complicated those calculations." Chun felt something cold and furious building in her chest. The soul stone at her throat pulsed with heat, and for a moment she could have sworn she heard Lyravin's voice, not in memory but in real time, whispering words of comfort and rage in equal measure. "You killed her to protect your experiment," she said, her voice deadly quiet. "We protected the natural course of galactic evolution," the curator corrected. "Your species have been expanding too rapidly, threatening the careful balance we have maintained for thousands of years. War was inevitable. We simply ensured it began when and how we desired." Caltherin's claws extended with an audible scraping sound. "And now? Now we have an interesting problem. You have discovered us, which was not part of our projection models. The war has not progressed as anticipated. The Dragon Prince, who should have become a genocidal madman, has instead chosen cooperation with his enemies. The human commander, who should have remained isolated, has somehow gained access to impossible memories. Chen's blood chilled as she realized the implications. You know about the memories. We know about many things, Commander Chen, including the fact that Princess Lyraven's consciousness transfer was not entirely natural. Our technology may have influenced the process. Another unintended consequence of our intervention at Helios Gate. The communication fell silent for a long moment, leaving only the ambient noise of 3 ships maintaining defensive positions among the asteroids. Chen found herself staring at Kale Theron, seeing her own horrified realization reflected in his golden eyes. "You're saying Lyraven's survival in my mind was your doing?" she asked finally. "Indirectly. Our weapons create quantum disruptions that occasionally interfere with biological consciousness patterns. In rare cases, this can result in what your species might call soul transfer. It was not intended, but it has proved instructive." Morrison's destroyer suddenly accelerated, breaking away from the asteroid field at maximum speed. His voice crackled through the comm system one last time. "I'm calling in the fleet. Both fleets. Whatever you people are, this ends now." The curator's response was immediate and terrifying. The alien ship's weapons systems came online with a sound like reality tearing, and a lance of impossible energy reached out to touch Morrison's fleeing destroyer. The human warship simply ceased to exist, not destroyed in any conventional sense, but erased as if it had never been. "Inconvenient," the curator mused. "Now we will have to deal with both your military forces arriving ahead of schedule. Our timeline has been significantly compressed." Chen stared at the empty space where Morrison's ship had been, her mind struggling to process what she had witnessed. "You just murdered an entire crew." "We removed a complication," the curator replied without emotion. "Captain Morrison's transmission will bring both human and dragon fleets to this location within hours. That acceleration requires us to move to the final phase of our experiment ahead of schedule." "What final phase?" Kale Theron demanded. "The one where we determine whether your species have sufficient potential to warrant preservation, or whether they should be guided toward extinction like so many others. Your unexpected cooperation presents variables we had not calculated. It will be fascinating to see how it affects the outcome." The alien ship began to change, its dark hull expanding and reshaping itself into something that looked less like a vessel and more like a massive space station. Sensor readings showed it was drawing power from sources that shouldn't exist, tapping into energy sources that defied known physics. The Helios Gate wreckage, Chen realized, studying the tactical display. "You're using it as components for something bigger. The wreckage serves as raw material, yes. Combined with our technology, it will create a rather impressive demonstration. Your respective governments will have approximately 6 hours to decide whether to pursue a peaceful resolution to their conflict or be guided toward mutual destruction." "What kind of demonstration?" Kale Theron asked, though Chan suspected they both already knew the answer. "We will provide both sides with a target that threatens their mutual survival. Something so dangerous that they must either cooperate to defeat it or perish in the attempt. Your responses will determine whether humanity and dragonkind have evolved sufficiently to warrant continued existence." Chun felt the pieces falling into place with horrible clarity. "You're going to use our own fleets against us. Create a scenario where we have to choose between working together or watching our civilizations burn." "Precisely. And you two will serve as the focal point for that choice. The Dragon Prince who learned to trust, and the human commander who carries impossible memories. You represent the potential for cooperation. Whether your peoples can follow your example will determine their fate." The transformation of the alien ship was accelerating, components from the Helios Gate wreckage flowing toward it like metal attracted to a magnet. Whatever the curators were building, it was massive and clearly designed to pose a threat that neither humans nor dragons could face alone. "And if they choose cooperation?" Kale Theron asked. "Then we will withdraw and allow your species to develop naturally. The experiment will be concluded, and we will seek other subjects for study. And if they choose conflict, then both civilizations will be reduced to manageable populations on carefully selected worlds, their technological development guided along safer paths. It has worked quite well with 17 other species. Chen closed her eyes, feeling the weight of two civilizations' fate pressing down on her shoulders. The curators had played them all perfectly, manipulating events from the shadows for 3 years while humans and dragons tore each other apart. Now, they were offering a choice that wasn't really a choice at all. "There's a third option," she said finally, opening her eyes to meet Keltheron's gaze. "I was hoping you would realize that," he replied with something that might have been a smile. "What do you have in mind?" "We don't wait for the fleets. We don't play their game according to their rules. We end this now, before they can complete whatever they're building. 2 people against a civilization that's been manipulating galactic events for millennia?" Keltheron's expression was skeptical, but not dismissive. "That seems optimistic even for you." Chun activated the ship's communication system, broadcasting on all frequencies that both human and dragon forces would monitor. "This is Commander Sarah Chun calling all vessels in human and dragon space. Priority Alpha alert. We have encountered the force responsible for the Helios Gate incident. The war between our peoples has been artificially generated by an alien species conducting experiments on our civilizations." The curator's voice cut across her transmission immediately. "Commander Chun, you are making a grave error. Your species are not ready for this knowledge." "Maybe not," Chun agreed, continuing her broadcast while studying the tactical readings from the alien construction. "But they deserve the chance to prove you wrong. All human and dragon forces converge on Helios system immediately. We're transmitting full tactical data on the alien vessel. This is not a human or dragon threat. This is a threat to both our species' survival." Keltheron activated his own communication systems, adding his voice to the broadcast. "This is Prince Keltheron of the Dragon Empire, confirming Commander Chen's transmission. The enemy of our peoples has revealed itself. I call upon all dragons to honor their ancient oaths. We defend our territory against all invaders. And I call upon all humans to remember why we reach for the stars," Chen added, "to prove that no one, no matter how advanced, has the right to decide our fate for us." The alien ship's construction was nearing completion, energy readings spiking to levels that made their small vessel's instruments scream warnings. Whatever the curators were building, it would be operational within minutes. "Fascinating," the curator mused. "You choose defiance over survival. This outcome was calculated as having less than a 3% probability. Maybe that's your problem," Chen replied, her hands already working over the ship systems. "You calculate probabilities, but you don't understand choice." Keltheron was studying the tactical display with the focused intensity of a predator. "Their construction shows clear structural vulnerabilities. If we could overload their power systems, it would take both human and dragon technology working together," Chun finished. "Something they think is impossible. Then we prove them wrong," Keltheron said simply. "What do you need me to do?" Chen looked at him. This dragon prince who had learned to trust against all his instincts, who was willing to risk everything on the word of a human carrying his dead sister's memories. For the first time since this began, she felt something like hope. "I need you to do something that goes against every tactical principle ever developed," she said. "I need you to trust me completely." "I already do," he replied without hesitation. In the distance, the alien weapon was beginning to power up, energy cascades flowing across its massive hull like liquid lightning. Soon both human and dragon fleets would arrive, and the curators would spring their final trap. Everything depended on whether 2 people from enemy species could accomplish what their civilizations had been unable to do. They were about to find out if trust was stronger than technology, if cooperation could overcome calculation, and if the impossible was just another word for something that hadn't happened yet. The soul stone pulsed against Chen's chest, and she could have sworn she heard Lyraven's voice whispering words of encouragement across the void. Some dances, her memory seemed to say, were worth every risk. Time to prove whether the stars remembered how to hope. The alien weapon was a thing of terrible beauty, its hull now spanning nearly 30 kilometers of transformed wreckage from both human and dragon vessels that had died at Helios Gate 3 years ago. Commander Sarah Chun watched the energy readings climb steadily as the curators prepared to demonstrate their power to the approaching fleets. According to the tactical display, they had perhaps 20 minutes before both human and dragon forces arrived in system. The power core is drawing energy from subspace, Prince Caltherin observed, his golden eyes studying the sensor data with professional focus. That technology is centuries beyond either of our civilizations. Even a direct assault from both fleets might not be enough to stop it. Chen nodded grimly. The weapon's energy output was already approaching levels that could sterilize planets, and it was still building toward full operational status. The curators had spent 3 years preparing for this moment, turning the tragedy of Helios Gate into the foundation for something far worse. Direct assault won't work, she agreed, her fingers dancing across the ship's communication console. But we don't need to destroy it. We just need to prove that humans and dragons can work together when it matters. She opened a quantum-encrypted channel that she hoped would reach both approaching fleets without the curators intercepting it. This is Chun to all incoming vessels. Do not engage the alien weapon directly. Repeat, do not engage. We're transmitting tactical data for a joint operation. The response came faster than she expected, multiple voices overlapping on the channel as both human and dragon commanders tried to make sense of the situation. Admiral Torres of the Human Defense Force was the first to achieve clarity. Commander Chun, this is Admiral Torres aboard the Constitution. We're reading massive energy signatures from your location. What's your tactical assessment? Before Chun could respond, a new voice cut across the channel, one that made Kale Theron straighten in recognition. This is Fleet Commander Vextar of the 3rd Dragon Fleet. Prince Kale Theron, explain your presence in this system immediately. Commander Vextar, Kale Theron replied formally. I am conducting a joint investigation with Commander Chun under emergency authority. The alien vessel you are detecting is responsible for the Helios Gate incident and represents an immediate threat to both our civilizations. The silence that followed was heavy with implications. Chun could imagine the shock aboard both fleets as they processed the reality of a dragon prince and human commander working together in the face of an external threat. Joint investigation? Admiral Torres's voice carried disbelief. Chun, are you under duress? Negative, Admiral. I am operating under my own authority as a diplomatic envoy. The intelligence we've gathered changes everything. The war between our peoples has been artificially manufactured by the aliens we're now facing. That's a serious accusation, Commander Vextar interjected. Even if true, it doesn't explain why you would trust a human with classified intelligence, Your Highness. Chun felt Kale Theron's tension through the small cabin as he struggled to find words that would make sense to his own people. Finally, he activated a private channel that excluded the human vessels. Vextar, old friend, I know how this appears. But Commander Chun carries something that changes the fundamental nature of our conflict. She bears the soul echo of my sister. The alien weapon's energy readings spiked higher, and the curator's voice crackled across all frequencies with casual menace. How delightful. Both fleets have arrived ahead of schedule. This will allow us to conduct our final experiment under optimal conditions. What final experiment? Admiral Torres demanded. Simple, Admiral. We will demonstrate the futility of resistance while providing both your civilizations with a choice. Cooperate to survive, or maintain your hatred and face extinction. You have precisely 15 minutes to decide before our weapon reaches a full operational capacity. Chun watched the tactical display as both fleets took defensive positions, human and dragon ships maintaining suspicious distances from each other despite facing a common threat. The curators had calculated correctly. 3 years of war had created too much mistrust for easy cooperation. They're not going to work together, she said quietly to Kale Theron. Not in time. The curators knew that. Then, we make them work together, Kale Theron replied, his claws extending as he made a decision that would have been unthinkable a week ago. Commander Chun, I'm transferring all Dragon tactical codes to your vessel. The implications hit her immediately. Kale, if I have those codes, I can coordinate both fleets from here. But you'll be committing treason by sharing them with a human. My sister died, believing our peoples could cooperate. Perhaps it's time to prove her right. His golden eyes met hers with absolute determination. Besides, technically you're not just human anymore. You carry dragon memories, dragon knowledge, dragon loyalty. That makes you qualified to hold our secrets. Chun felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders as the tactical codes transferred to her systems. She now had access to the communication and coordination protocols of both civilizations, something that should have been impossible. Admiral Torres, Commander Vextar, this is Chun. I'm uploading synchronized tactical data to both fleets. The alien weapon has 3 primary power nodes that must be struck simultaneously to cause a cascade failure. You're asking us to coordinate attacks with the enemy, Admiral Torres pointed out. I'm asking you to fight for survival, Chun replied. The weapon they're building isn't designed to conquer. It's designed to exterminate. If we don't stop it now, there won't be anyone left to continue the war. The curator's voice cut across the channel again, now carrying a note of surprise. Unexpected. The probability of successful tactical code sharing between your species was calculated at 0.03%. Fascinating. Maybe you should have calculated for something else, Chun said, studying the weapon's configuration on her enhanced display. Hope. Hope is not a quantifiable variable, the curator replied dismissively. Then, you've been calculating wrong for millennia, Kale Theron interjected. Chun, are you reading the power distribution patterns? I see them. Chun's excitement built as she studied the data. The weapon's design assumes our fleets will attack independently, trying to overwhelm its defenses through superior firepower. But if we coordinate targeting solutions, we can turn their own power distribution against them, Kale Theron finished. Brilliant, but it requires precise timing across both fleets. Chun opened a channel to both fleet commanders simultaneously. All vessels, prepare for coordinated strike pattern Delta 7. Dragon ships will target power nodes Alpha and Gamma. Human ships will focus on node Beta. Strike authorization will come on my mark. You're not in command of this fleet, Chun, Admiral Torres protested. Neither are you, Commander Vextar added coldly. Dragon forces don't take orders from humans. Then, don't take orders from humans, Chun replied, playing her final card. Take orders from Princess Lyraven. The communication channel fell silent as the implications of her words sank in. Chun could feel Kale Theron's surprise, but also his understanding. She was using his sister's authority, channeling memories that shouldn't exist to command respect from both fleets. Explain, Admiral Torres said finally. Chun closed her eyes, letting Lyraven's memories flow through her consciousness. When she spoke again, her voice carried the authority and wisdom of a dragon princess who had died believing in peace. Admiral Torres, 3 years ago you argued for diplomatic solutions when your own government wanted military action. You believed then that war with the dragons would cost humanity too much. You were right. How do you know that? Torres asked, his voice shaken. Commander Vextar, Chun continued. You once told your prince that the greatest strength of dragons was not their firepower, but their ability to inspire loyalty. You said that loyalty earned through trust was worth more than obedience gained through fear. You still believe that? Vextar's response was barely a whisper. Those were private words, spoken only to the princess. She remembered them. Chun said simply, just as she remembered that both your species are better than the hatred that divides them. The choice before us isn't really about tactics or survival. It's about whether we trust each other enough to become something greater than what we are alone. The alien weapon's energy readings continued climbing, now approaching critical levels. Chun could see on the tactical display that they had perhaps 5 minutes before it reached operational capacity. All ships, she announced, stand by for coordinated strike. Target solutions are uploaded to your tactical systems. Remember, this only works if every ship fires at exactly the right moment. dragon fire and human fire striking as one. This is madness, Admiral Torres muttered. But all human vessels prepare for coordinated strike. Target Beta, node, on Commander Chen's mark. Dragon Fleet acknowledges, Vextar added after a moment's hesitation. We will trust in the wisdom of Princess Lyraven. All vessels target Alpha and Gamma nodes. Strike on Chen's authorization. Chun felt the weight of both civilizations' fate in her hands as she watched the tactical display. The alien weapon was nearly ready, energy cascades flowing across its hull like liquid lightning. In a few moments, it would have enough power to eliminate any resistance. Energy spike detected, Kale Theron reported. The weapon is beginning its final charging sequence. Then, we're out of time, Chun realized. All vessels fire. Fire now. The response was immediate and beautiful. Dozens of human and dragon ships opened fire simultaneously, their weapons striking the alien weapon's power nodes in perfect coordination. Dragon plasma fire merged with human particle beams, creating a light show that illuminated the entire star system. For a moment, Chun thought they had failed. The alien weapon absorbed the assault, its shields holding against the combined firepower of both fleets. But then, the carefully coordinated targeting began to take effect. The power distribution network that the curators had built into their weapon had been designed to handle massive energy loads, but not the precise disruption pattern that human and dragon weapons could create when working together. The cascade failure began at node Beta, spread to Alpha, and, finally, reached Gamma in a chain reaction that the weapons designers had never anticipated. Impossible! The curator's voice carried genuine shock for the first time. Our calculations indicated a 97% probability of successful completion. The probability of coordinated tactical response was 0.03%, Chun finished. But you forgot to calculate for something. What? Love, Kale Theron said simply. The kind of bond that makes people willing to trust their enemies to save their friends. The alien weapon was tearing itself apart now. Energy discharges arcing between its components as the power cascade spread throughout the structure. Chun could see escape pods launching from the dying construct. Apparently, the curators believed in survival over martyrdom. This experiment is concluded, the curator announced as their pods fled toward the edge of the system. Your species have demonstrated capabilities that our models did not predict. We will not interfere further. And if you change your minds? Admiral Torres asked. We won't, Chun said with certainty she couldn't explain. They're not conquerors. They're scientists. They've learned what they wanted to know. As the alien weapon collapsed into expanding debris, both human and dragon fleets maintained their positions, weapons powered down but still ready. The immediate threat was over, but the larger question remained, what would happen now that they had proven they could work together? Prince Kale Theron, Commander Vextar, called over the comm, request permission to come aboard your vessel. There are matters that require discussion. Granted, Kale Theron replied. Admiral Torres, you're welcome to join us if you wish. It's time our civilizations had an honest conversation. Chun felt the soul stone pulse against her chest, warm and comforting. The voice in her memories whispered that some dances were worth every risk, and some truths were worth dying for. They had stopped a war and prevented an extinction. Now, they had to prove that the cooperation born in crisis could survive in peace. The stars, as always, would remember everything.